This is Barbara Ellisted with Mesquite Citizen Journal, and we're here this afternoon with Wes Boger, who is running for Mesquite City Council in the primary election in 2020. So welcome, Wes, and we're glad to have you with us. And tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. My name is Wes Boger. I've lived in Mesquite since 2005. I've lived for 15 years. I have two kids, one at the middle school and one at Virgin Valley Elementary. I'm a small business owner. I actually have a couple little businesses. One of them keeps the lights on and the other one's just for fun. I've been doing this since 2003. I actually started before I moved here to Nevada, and I moved to Nevada because of the business climate. Since my kids have started school, I've been a volunteer at the elementary school. My wife actually ended up getting a job there when they had an opening. We are very involved with the community and with the kids and the schools. Last year, I was asked by Chief Chesley to start a new volunteer program called the Mesquite Police Watchdogs. Project Watchdogs is a group of people that basically monitors the school when the kids are coming in and when the kids are leaving, basically drop off and pick up times.
Okay.
And that's a great project. Last summer, I'd found that the police were looking for a crossing guard, actually for all crossing guards, they didn't have any. And I put my name in the hat just in case they didn't have anybody else.
Okay.
And they didn't really have a whole lot of applicants, so I took that job just to make sure we had coverage. And so that's what I've been doing in addition to my regular job. And I quit that job to run for council on March 5th. And I know it was March 5th because that's my son's birthday.
Okay.
That's why I had to pick that day, so I remember it. I got married on the 4th of July for the very same reason.
There you go.
Sorry, Makisha.
Okay. It's often noted that city council candidates are only seen in meetings and activities once they place their name on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
You've not regularly attended a lot of meetings and activities associated with the government.
That's actually not true.
Okay. Please tell us about that.
Oh yeah, I usually sit in the very back.
Okay.
I sit with either whoever's there from the fire department, whether it's Jason Andrus or Chief Andrus or Quinn Averett. I sit back there with Nick Montoya. I usually sit in the back or on one of the sides.
I don't know. Sitting with Nick Montoya might be a reason not to vote for you, but
I love that guy.
I do too.
I love all those men. They're great folks.
How do you convey confidence, though, that you're familiar with the issues and are able to make decisions and solve problems?
When I was on the Virgin Valley SOT, we would come up with solutions to the budget shortcomings and such.
Explain to the public what SOT is.
The SOT is when the school districts had a reorganization. They're supposed to have broken up the school districts. It's called, I think it was AB 394. They formed organizational teams called school organizational teams, or SOTs. Some call them SOTs. Okay. Those are made up of staff and parents, and they're elected by their peers. And I was elected for the first 3 years of the SOT. Okay. I did not accept it to go on this fourth year because I got on the CIAB, the Virgin Valley Community Educational Board, Educational Advisory Board. But yeah, on the SOT, you would look at budgets and prioritize them and make decisions on how you're going to basically use the scant amount of funds that these schools seem to get to try to, like our big thing was to try to reduce the impact of the high class sizes. That's extremely important. And we did that using the City of Mesquite grants that we get for the marijuana funds. Okay. And we hired teacher aides basically to help with that. So, but as far as being in council meetings and being stuff with the city, I know you sit in the front. I sit in the back. I usually don't draw attention to myself. Running for
I don't
office.
even go. I watch it on the internet, but I'm not running for council.
I've seen you there before.
Yeah, I have been, but. Okay.
But no, I usually sit in the back and just kind of say hi to the chiefs and stuff and see what's going on with there. I've contacted several council members. I don't do the public comments.
Okay.
There's a reason for that, and some don't agree with the reason, and some do. I look at it. A lot of people go up to public comment, and we'll probably see it tonight, where they go up there and it sounds so personal that they just, you guys need to do this because, I'm just, it is so adversarial. I look at it, if I'm going to be adversarial with a council person, I'm going to do it in private. And because when you do that in public, in my opinion, and just this is the way that I present myself, the way I do things is, on the next, you may not agree on this agenda item, on this day or this meeting or even this year, but in the future, you're going to be on the same page on something. And if you are the one that's pushing this issue or this opinion, or you have a council person that's swaying back and forth, and you're the one who has been just basically rude to them, or that's how they see it in public comment, they're not going to listen to you when you want to present your opinion on this next thing. They might do the exact opposite because they're human. They may not be the best council person by doing that, but they're human. They're not robots. I'm a human. I'm not a robot.
Yeah, okay. The city is now facing its biggest budget challenge because of the business shutdown associated with COVID-19 virus. So the next few questions pertain to that subject.
Sure.
It's possible the city could lose up to 40% of revenues over the next year. Since almost 80% of the budget is spent on employee salaries and benefits, how do you anticipate bridging that gap?
It's actually impossible to answer that question without seeing the budget, without actually sitting with them and going through the actual contracts, employment contracts and such. But I do feel that most of the unions would want to be able to keep their members' jobs and that they'd be willing to make some concessions in order to do so.
Okay, we're going to get to the union contracts in
Sure.
a minute, but go ahead.
Sure, but that's a big part of it, and a big part of that question, 80% of it. So that's what you'd have to look at first, obviously,
Okay.
and then the city is really only, in my opinion, responsible for public safety. The extra things that we do are important, but I don't know that they're required by the NRS. So you have to do the things that are required first, and then see what you have left over. So it's really going to take a lot of pushing and pulling and to keep things like the rec center, which is extremely important, to keep that open, to keep the senior center going, to keep the services going from the senior center.
Yeah.
But without actually going through those budget meetings, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to answer that with any accuracy.
Even if you go to the budget meetings, you're not going to be able to do it with accuracy.
That could very well
Okay.
be. Because everybody's going to have their own opinion. Everybody has their own.
Yeah.
What did George say? It was their own sacred cows, I guess.
Right.
So.
If you had only two choices, which would be your first and then obviously your second? Would you choose to lay off employees to help bridge the budget gap? Or would you ask all current employees to take a 10% pay cut? You can only choose
In
one.
that hypothetical, I would believe that most employees would probably want to take the 10%. And so I would discuss it with most of the employees that are part of it, that you're making a decision about first to see what the consensus was.
Okay.
But that would be my first thought in such a hypothetical
Okay.
scenario.
Well, all three employee unions, the police, fire, and rank and file, are due a 5% pay increase July 1. What would you do about that if you were sitting on the dais right now?
Well, you're going to have to negotiate with them. They see the writing on the wall. This is basically like, look at the city of Mesquite like Noah's Ark. we're all in this together. Either going to be, it's going to turn into Titanic, or it's going to turn into, or we're going to be a viable community, and we're going to have a nice cruise ship. No COVID on that cruise ship either.
Yeah.
But I think that
Okay.
everybody knows we're on the same boat. And
Okay.
so I think there's going to be a lot of concessions that they would actually want to make in order to get to keep all of their jobs and to keep the high level of public safety that we have. I think it's extremely important, and I just tend to think that that's what the employees would want as well. Now, having said that, I haven't talked to them yet, so I couldn't tell you for sure.
The 4 area schools, the 2 elementaries, the middle school, and the high school, have been receiving a portion of the cannabis sales tax that the city collects every year. Are you in favor of keeping that going or cutting it altogether?
Well, I don't know how. I mean, when I first decided to run for office, that was a huge issue for me. The city of Mesquite.
On which one, to keep it going or cut it? Was a huge issue.
The funding to begin with.
Okay.
People, when we got Deep Roots to come into town, you remember this, you reported on it. People were thinking that this money was going to go to schools, that they would see something from it, whether it was from the state, but they also thought it would be from the local governments when we actually got Deep Roots here. And Deep Roots has been really gracious when they've donated to other community partners and such. But
Right.
so on the CIAB, you see, and also on the SOT, you see that we're getting $60,000 for the schools, but you don't really realize how much money the city was getting. And the city started getting, started low, 100,000, 120, whatever. Then it went to 600 and something, and then last year it was $800,000. Schools, they still got $60,000, which was about 9%. I really wanted to be able to push that envelope. This was supposed to be extra money for the city. It wasn't really supposed to be, we did fine before we had it. So this should have been more of just extra revenue.
Okay.
So yeah, I definitely, before we had this economy crash, this shutdown, I was fully on board with having a bill in which we had a floor that would say something like arbitrarily, after the first 240,000, say a third of the money went to the schools after that, up to, but then if those receipts went to about 1.2 million or 100 or a million, that it would stop at that point. So they would have a window with a floor and with a ceiling to it.
Okay.
Because if you've ever looked at the school budgets, teacher salaries they have to budget about $85,000 for each teacher. And when you go to a school and you see 40 kids in a classroom and one teacher on a microphone with speakers trying to control that class, you realize that 40 kids in a class doesn't cut it. And if we as a city have a way to mitigate that and to help, I think it's in all of our best interest to do that.
Okay. Overall, what are your top 3 revenue priorities and your top 3 expense priorities for the, excuse me, 2020 and 2021 budget?
What do you mean revenue priorities?
Where would you look to try to either get new revenues or increase the revenues that we already have?
That would be something I'd have to look at in the budget meetings to see where it's coming from now. Of course, we definitely want to have more small business in this town, and that's a revenue stream. You want construction in this town, you want housing, and those are going to be revenue streams. As far as your expenses, your first 2 are going to be police and fire. The third priority for me would probably be the rec center and or the senior center.
Okay.
But as far as but I'd really have to go through those budget meetings that are coming up soon and see more on those revenue streams.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it will.
What are your thoughts on future funding of Mesquite Regional Economic Development? And should the current council reduce its funding, increase its funding, or dissolve the organization altogether?
Well, We are looking at, as you stated earlier, a huge budget shortfall. And I think that anywhere you can save money, we should be saving money.